Denny. Just kidding. Michigan Senate candidate Abdul El Sayed campaigning like a commie in camouflage, backing policies like Medicare for all and abolishing ICE, but denying that he's a socialist snake in the grass at the final Democratic debate.
When it comes to the question of socialism, I'm not a socialist. I'm just a capitalist who understands how capitalism works. The biggest threat to capitalism was never the idea of government regulation. It was always monopoly.
And there's a reason El Sayed's a socialist in practice, but not in public. The DSA brand is becoming political poison for the party.
A clear majority of voters say that the Democratic Party is too liberal. And you know what is fueling that? You know what's only adding fuel to the fire? How about the Democratic Socialists of America? I would argue the biggest red flag that Democrats have, the biggest red flag, look at this. It's apathy, not believing that Democrats can change anything.
And after the new DSA co-chair's insane platform went viral, some Democrats in the media are begging them to cut the commie nonsense.
This is not a big tent kind of like, well, abolish prisons, abolish the border, abolish the presidency, abolish the Pentagon. I mean, these are crazy people.
That's a huge problem. These are views that are, I think, represented by a very small amount of individuals.
Some of this DSA stuff, let's be very clear, Stephanie, is way out of touch.
If Democrats want to make America more affordable, more fair, and more free, and I think they do, they better speak truth to its most extreme base, or they're going to let a small faction of radicals drive more people toward Donald Trump.
So finally, Greg, some Democrats are starting to stand up and say, whoa, slow down.
It's not just that, though. You have a socialist denying that he's really a socialist. And it's a thing that is unique to the spectrum of the left. From the centrist liberal to the ultimate socialist, they always walk back their beliefs at every chance. You rarely hear a right-winger go, oh, I'm not that conservative. You never hear that. But how many times have you heard a liberal, Jessica, say, I'm a liberal, but I'm not crazy like those nutbags?
I'm not.
But it's like, it's because you kind of innately know that leftism is loony and out of step with mainstream thinking that you have to go, yeah, I'm a little nutty, but I'm not that nutty. Meanwhile, we call, you guys call us Nazis, but we get rid of our Nazis. We don't push them into the Senate and hope they win. Right now, what I find is that, the DSA is saying exactly what they are to everyone. And they may be the most honest leftists about what they want. They're saying what they want to take over. They're saying what they want to tax. They're saying what they want to ban. And it reveals an essential truth about socialism and, I would say, the slower socialism called Democrats, is that it's all top-down social engineering, and it cannot exist unless you enforce it aggressively, which means it is antithetical to human nature. If this stuff was so innate, why do you have to force it down our throats? Capitalism doesn't need a movement. Do you know what I mean? There's no Republican capitalist society. Socialism needs a movement because they need to force it. Capitalism, flaws and all, most resembles human behavior, which is where we live by incentives and disincentives. We like to trade, buy and sell goods. We need that. We'll give you this. That's how it works. Socialism has to aggressively tell you that this is superior because you won't buy it. I also think they're not just sick of socialism because we've heard enough about it now. There's still stuff lingering here that I think people have gotten tired of. It's the oppressions politics. I think a lot of people who bought into it are now thinking that, boy, when I say I'm oppressive, I sound if I say that I'm being oppressed, I sound like a real wimp. When you say I am oppressed, you realize that you're a loser because you're saying I'm not successful. And I don't know any men in my life that walk around going that I'm oppressed, maybe by their wives. But it's a confession. It's a confession. And I think what people are realizing, thankfully, is that oppression is self-oppression. You're oppressing yourself.
So you're kind of oppressing yourself at home then.
But I enjoy it. I have an oppressive outfit that I wear.
That's true. That's
Yes,
true.
it zips up in the front and I hang upside down.
Right. Dana, there's like just now an outward fight breaking out between especially Fetterman, who's just taken the lead now, and he's gonna crush these guys if he can.
Fetterman had a great line today. He called El Sayed the Pontiac Platner. And, you know, as Donald Trump has proven, like a nickname can work because it's like, oh, yeah, that's exactly what it is. For example, El Sayed has had pivots before. He was asked about lying about being a physician, and he said, it's not about whether I'm a doctor, it's about whether you can see a doctor. And even the interviewer was like, I don't think that's going to cut it. So one of two things is happening. Either he has seen polling that says he feels very good about his position in the primary, and he knows that it is a major loser in the general. Mike Rogers is the Republican. He only lost by, I think, 17,000 votes the last time he ran statewide. In a recent poll, it said like Syed would lose to him by about 10. Haley Stevens would make that race competitive, be about tied. Or he's realizing that he doesn't have enough votes in the white, what do we call them, the awfuls?
Yeah.
That there's not enough awfuls. I have a piece of hair on my nose. That there's not enough awfuls to get him across, and enough people in Dearborn.
Fluent white female lips.
Exactly. The other thing is, when you were talking, it reminded me of Joe Biden, right? He was supposed to be the guy's get back to normal, just total normal Democrat. And what happened when he got into office? He was like, let me just reveal my true colors. So I love that the DSA true believers will come on and tell you exactly what they think. This morning, Faz Shakir said, well, you know, Dana, that's like not really what people think. I'm like, I'm not making it up. She said it. So they're going to have to answer for it.
So answer to what Greg said, Jessica. You know, it's really about degree. You guys say, you know, you're not communists. They say they want to blow open the border, but Biden did it. You guys say, that you know, you don't want to abolish prisons, but you guys do cash bail. You commit a crime, you get right out. I mean, so it really is about how fast you go.
Yeah, well, that links to what Greg was saying, where he said, you don't hear conservatives saying, well, I'm not that conservative. And so I wrote down some policy positions that mainstream conservatives take in opposition to the most conservative position, like being for IVF. For instance, the most conservative position is shouldn't be allowed. Mike Pence is out there talking about how he got his family. That heartbeat bills shouldn't be implemented on a statewide level. You have that in 13 states, I think, at this point. But mainstream conservatives are like, 6 weeks seems early. You can't even get a scan. That immigrants who have been in this country and productively contributed and not broken our laws on our land should not be deported. And gay marriage in general. It's just
These are all granular elements of larger story.
Immigration?
Yes, we are all on the same page with
No, you're not.
immigration,
No.
and we're almost entirely on the same page with abortion.
Donald Trump isn't even on that page with immigration. He talks about how great the people who worked in his hotels are, because he used to hire a lot of people who are undocumented, and that his friends call him up who work in hospitality, restaurants, the people who work on our farms, and that they're all good
What is the
people.
extreme position? The extreme position would be
is
we immediately
Stephen Miller.
like airlift people out of their homes.
I'm just saying that there are plenty of conservatives, whether they just want to win elections or not, who understand that the most conservative position is untenable. As far as this race goes, we'll see in Michigan if the primary electorate is only thinking of the primary or if they're thinking of the general. Because that poll that Dana cited, I'll say, had losing by 10, and Haley Stevens had like a 0.8 percentage point lead over Mike Rogers. He was super close to Alyssa Slotkin the last time that he ran, and he could do it. This time around, if it is not as blue of an environment as I would like, or we expect, the financial disclosures issue for Al Sayed, I think, is actually going to hurt him. So he had been fighting releasing this information, and it came out that he owns all of these properties abroad, and they were passed down to his wife. They're in Bangalore and in Dubai, and they're making a few $100,000 off of being a landlord. Those are the kinds of things that I think people do glom onto when you've been railing against the 1% and saying, you know, this is about America first. Everything's about Michigan, but you're a landlord abroad. Or that his wife, who is a psychiatrist, doesn't accept Medicare, but you're for Medicare for all. So the Stevens camp is definitely trying to make something of that.
Paul, I think the issue here is a little bit larger. It feels to me like a couple things going on here. First of all, it's a little bit like the rest of the Democrats now have seen the DSA. It's like the third date and they've seen the girl without her makeup on. And all of a sudden, oh, I didn't realize I was getting into this, right? And now it's pulled them into someplace that they don't want to go. And the thing is, I don't think there's that much of a difference. I really don't. I know that they're trying to triangulate against the DSA. But go back to even Obama. Let's go to Obamacare, which grabbed 1/6 of the American economy. By any metric, has not worked. One of the things you hear about the affordability issue is the cost of health care. We were promised everything under the sun, including keeping your doctor, quite famously. So I don't actually find them to be that radical, except when they say the real quiet part out loud. And that is, we want to abrogate the Constitution. We want to get rid of Article 1, the Senate, the President, that's Article 2, the Supreme Court, Article 3. You know what happens if you advocate to get rid of America's founding document and you marry it in any way, shape, or form to coercion? Sedition. That's what that is. And I think that some of the Democratic Party right now are getting a little afraid. They're thinking we got these feral children here who have come out of the woodwork who want to get rid of the entire thing. And some of them are throwing bricks at ICE. And all you need right there, that's conspiracy to commit sedition. And if you say, well, where are you getting this? This is like some Civil War thing. No. You know when they charged seditious conspiracy? 6 January. That's what they charged the Proud Boys with and the Oath Keepers with. And let me just close with this. You know, there's dots out there. You got to connect them, but they're there. If you look at where these guys all go to get their marching orders, headquarters is about to be blown open. I'm talking about Cuba. Everyone, I mean, Bill de Blasio honeymooned in Cuba. That's been going on forever. All of these characters you're hearing about at some point make the pilgrimage to Havana. They all go down there. Code Pink, Hassan Piker, all of these guys that are thought leaders of a lot of this stuff. And Cuba is about to flip. And when it does, you're going to get the archives, and you're going to get a bunch of narco government guys who want to make a deal. And they're going to talk. And there's already an open investigation into those characters that I just named. And I think there are elements of the Democratic Party who are taking a look at this and saying, these guys are radioactive. We better not get caught up in this, because I'm not sitting in the cell next to Hassan Piker.
I like that. We should arrest the communists. I'm totally on board with that.
They'll get there.
I'll talk to Blanche later.
I'm hoping that Radcliffe and Cash are watching this closely and are married up with the State Department, because that's, you know, obviously that's what's running this whole thing. So we'll see. Rubio's on it.
All right. Or Miller. I mean, he really runs the place anyway. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.